Let's start the show, okay?
You're tuned in to the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Tolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
A good morning in the first round. Big college football weekend. We actually had some great games. Oh, I needed to start the show with my foot in my mouth, taking Auburn to beat Florida. We were up at game day yesterday, and it was an amazing scene. Talked to a lot of people that listened to the show, interacted with a lot of college football fans, and right off the bat, I've got to say, big win for Florida, big win for Dan Mullen. They get it done in the swamp, taking down Auburn, who a top 10 team, but Bo Nix was just not ready for prime time. A-plus effort from Kyle Trask, quarterback for Florida. Super competitive. The first half, though, 5 turnovers, and it seemed like they had to work out the jitters, both teams. Once they got it rolling, though, Florida just took off, and Auburn couldn't keep up. 24-13 was the final on that score. Let's go to the big board right now and count down everything that happened in the world of college football yesterday. We're going to get it started off with Auburn going on the road to Florida. Can't get it done. Florida wins the game 24-13 in a very epic battle, but the Gators come out on top. Next week they have LSU, but they're absolutely going to be for real. Ohio State playing at home, number 4 to Michigan State. They get it done 34-10. This is pretty much what we expected to have happen, except Michigan State's defense just couldn't withstand the A-plus offense and great job that Ohio State did. Justin Fields didn't put up awesome numbers, but he looked, I would say, pedestrian, but managed the game. J.K. Rollins goes off over 170 yards. And a touchdown yesterday. Ohio State just continues to roll. Oklahoma, not a big game, more of a tune-up. They get it done against Kansas on the road, 45-20. Hurts goes for 2 touchdowns and 228 yards again. Heisman contender with a pedestrian-type game, but it does enough to get it done. Surprisingly, Kansas scores 20 points in the fourth quarter. I think that's after Oklahoma took their foot off the accelerator. In another game out of the Big 12, number 21, Oklahoma State 35, Texas Tech, though, 45. The big story in this game, where was the defense for Oklahoma State? They had been stout up until yesterday. Texas Tech quarterback Jet Duffy puts up 424 yards on him, 4 touchdowns. They just could not stop Texas Tech yesterday. They get beat on the road. Utah State goes to LSU. They get blitzed 42-6. Big game next week for LSU at home. College game day will be there against Florida. Out of the Big Ten, Iowa goes on the road to the Big House. Michigan squeaks out a victory 10-3. I got a lot to talk about in this game. One, it puts Jim Harbaugh's job a little bit on life support, not completely. But neither of these teams look good. Iowa just happened to look worse. Kent State goes on the road to Camp Randall, 48-0. My number 1 Heisman guy, Jonathan Taylor, 186 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. He can beat you passing the ball to him. He can beat you running. That's why he's my number 1 guy. Number 11, Texas goes on the road to Morgantown. They take on West Virginia. They get the job done, 42-31. Texas's defense is like a sieve. I mean, they can't stop anything right now, and that's going to be a big factor because next week it's going to be a game in Dallas, high noon showdown with Oklahoma, and Virginia Tech goes on the road, goes up 35-0 on Miami. Miami storms back, ties the game. Virginia Tech takes a late touchdown in the fourth quarter to beat them. 42-35. N'Kosi Perry is the story there for Miami. Over 400 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. That is the wrap-up on the big games. The other games I was watching yesterday, Georgia goes on the road to Tennessee. Tennessee comes out with a new quarterback, Maurer, who's out of Ocala, Florida. Keeps the game close, actually had a 14-13 lead. And then Kirby Smart decided to throw the on switch. Georgia gets it done 43-14. Oregon gets a quality win at home over Cal, 17-7. Stanford beats Washington. What is going on with Chris Peterson and his bipolar Huskies up in the Palouse? I have no idea. Stanford gets the job done, though, at home, 23-13. Boise State ranked 38th 20-13 over UNLV. They get a good road win. And the last two stories are teams that are so far off the radar, yet they're ranked. Number 24, SMU is 6-0. They get a comeback victory over Tulsa yesterday, 43-37. Baylor, 5-0 this year. I mean, I didn't even know Baylor still had a team after what they went through with Sproles, or their last head coach there, and all the sexual misconduct and allowing things to happen that shouldn't be happening. They bring in Matt Rhuke, who I think has done a great job. They're 5-0. They get it done on the road at Kansas State, 31-12, and almost out of breath. Chris, how are you this morning? Well, I had to start the show with the foot in my mouth because we were up at College Game Day yesterday, and I was telling anybody that would listen that Auburn was going to win the game, and I couldn't have been more wrong than that.
Yeah, you're walking around saying to everybody, hey, you're going to be happy. No, you're going to be happy. Yeah, you put a big foot in your mouth yesterday.
Yeah, I thought that Auburn's running game could sustain them. They could have ball control. I didn't think that Bo Nix would make mistakes. He had 3 interceptions in the game. I mean, the whole story about the first half of the game was, I think, jitters for both teams coming out. You have 5 turnovers. Nobody looked sharp. If there was a shining light for Auburn, it had to be Marlon Davidson, their senior defensive end, and number 5, Derek Brown, who recovered 2 fumbles, one for a 43-yard return, which should have been for a touchdown, but the turf monster got him. Beyond that, Florida just played out of their minds. A completely solid game, a good game for Dan Mullen, a good game for their program. I couldn't have been more wrong about where I thought Florida was at. And, I've got to give credit to where credit is due. Auburn just wasn't ready for that primetime game. The crowd was in it. They were able to move the ball, even Trask getting hurt in the second quarter. Emory Jones comes in and is, I would call him, effective. He had 5 completions at a 5 for 7. Rushed for 13 yards, didn't make any mistakes. They just kept the rhythm going. Trask comes back in the second quarter, and their offense looked good against a really good Auburn defense. Auburn's defense wasn't the problem yesterday. They couldn't get their running game going.
And again, that goes back to the point I was making Friday night. When it comes down to Auburn, basically it came down to really falling on the shoulder of Bo Nix and how good his Auburn was going to be. If he was going to be the Bo Nix from Mississippi State, or if he was going to be, the Bo Nix from Texas A&M a few weeks ago. And yesterday it just showed that he wasn't ready for that atmosphere, and the atmosphere was a little too big for him as he had 3 turnovers. And of course that comes back to play. It comes back to bite you, because there was a couple of plays where he actually had some receivers. He actually missed them, like the fourth quarter where he had the wide receiver on the slant when he actually threw the ball behind him, where if he'd have just led him right there, that would have put them up. So, that's stuff that Auburn's going to have to go back and look at. They're going to have to go back and look at some of those points they left on the field yesterday.
Got to give a lot of credit to the Florida defense playing out of their minds yesterday. Auburn comes into the game averaging 251 yards rushing. Florida holds them to 124 yards rushing total. And I've got to give full credit to the Florida defense. They stepped up. They were ready to play, and they took this game seriously like we said that they needed to last week.
Yes, they did. And, I'm actually going to give that secondary kudos, because we've been down on that secondary all year long. And yesterday, that secondary actually came and actually played a solid game yesterday against a quarterback who put up over 300 yards and had 3 touchdowns last week. I don't know what Grantham said to those guys coming up to this week, but they played their tails off yesterday. They played with heart. They played disciplined football yesterday, and they made big plays when they needed to.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. Full credit has to go to the Florida defense. Next week we're kind of previewing a little bit. They have to go to LSU, which is going to be another, really super tough game. But, the worst case scenario for the Gators is, even if they lose that game, a couple of weeks ago, if we had said after the Miami game, after the Kentucky game, that Florida could contend for the SEC East, I would have told you there's no way. I mean, Georgia is just light years ahead of them. I thought that South Carolina would be a tough game for them. Right. That could go either way. We're almost halfway through the season right now. Florida is a contender in the SEC East, and I think that they could hold their own against Georgia all day long. Whereas after performances against Miami and Kentucky, we look at them and go, if they've got to start getting good, which they have, but they were looking bipolar and they weren't looking like a contender in the East. And when you look at their schedule, they could potentially lose to anybody on their schedule coming up. But I think they could beat Missouri. I think they could beat South Carolina. And then you've got the game at LSU and Florida State in a directional school. I mean, they are definitely a serious contender in the East at this point.
Yeah, they are a serious contender. And, basically it comes with, unfortunately, the injury of Felipe Franks. With Franks having that injury going down, they were able to bring in Kyle Trask, who was able to, be able to open up the offense and be able to pass the ball, be able to, basically go through his progressions, find these receivers that are open, and actually, as we love to say, take what the defense gives him. And, he's not really about going about the big plays. And, he finds those little small slants, those little routes that, people that actually forget about as a quarterback. He's not about the big plays, and he's just looking to distribute the ball and actually just march Florida down the field methodically, and it works out well for him.
Yeah, the second play of the game, he sees that he's got his wide receiver Swain matched up against a linebacker,
right.
A little 10-yard pattern, a slant, and then because of the athletic talent, Florida's able to take it to the house for a touchdown. Yeah, I just think they did a great job. And another thing that I wanted to talk about was the fact that Trask goes down in the second quarter and Emory Jones comes in and they don't skip a beat.
Yeah, when you look at Emory Jones a while back, probably a few games earlier this season, he didn't look polished. Well, as you've seen Emory Jones the last couple of games that he had to come in and play a few series, he actually looked really, really well. He's able to put the ball there. He has a strong arm. His ability to run the ball actually, makes the defense have to play disciplined football, because if you don't set the edge, this guy can break a 30-yard run. He runs like a deer. So the fact that you have a quarterback that can come in and be a solid backup to your starter, that goes to Dan Mullen actually having his quarterbacks prepared to play the game.
Not only were the quarterbacks prepared to play the game, the crowd was into the game. The whole team was ready to play the game. Solid performance for the Gators. That's why we've got the Gator helmet up here this morning. A-plus job to them. And like you said, next week, it doesn't get any easier because they go on the road to LSU. College Game Day will be there for that game. And that's just going to be six kinds of hell. It's just going to be a bloodbath. Actually, Vegas has LSU this morning, Sunday morning, as a 4-point favorite in that game.
And I can agree with that. Just looking at what Florida's been able to do over just against Auburn this week, and then you look at the fact that sometimes LSU still has that tendency of playing down to their competition or playing towards the competition. This is going to be a good game. Florida showed you last night that their defense is ready to play. It doesn't matter who they are. They're ready to attack the ball in the secondary. That front seven is still a monster. That same front seven we saw against Miami at the beginning of the season. They're getting healthy, and they're getting all their players back. I look for this game to be a really close game next week as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. Let's start going down the other big games around the country. Yesterday, Ohio State brings in Michigan State yesterday, nighttime game, primetime on ABC. They get it done 34-10. This is pretty much what we expected to see out of Ohio State and Michigan State yesterday. J.K. Dobbins, the running back for Ohio State, goes off for 172 yards on 24 carries, and he gets a touchdown rushing. Justin Fields didn't put up incredible numbers, but a term that I can't stand to use, but I will right now, is he managed the game. He didn't make mistakes. Ohio State looked really good, and they took apart a defense that was a top 10 defense in the country, be it a home game. I think Ohio State really looked good, and I think Michigan State looked like what we thought they were.
Well, Michigan State, they are who we thought they were. They were going into a hostile environment. They were going into, the shoe to play Ohio State, and basically what it boils down to, when you can't move the ball down the field on the defensive team, and you just look at some of the turnovers that Ohio State was able to cause against Michigan State yesterday. You had the fumbles, and when you can't move that ball, that defense gets tired. And Ohio State was able to wear down that defense yesterday, and it shows with some of the big runs and some of the big plays going into the second half that Ohio State was able to produce.
Yeah, Ohio State allowed Michigan State to get into their side of the 50 several times, and then for whatever reason, it just seemed like Ohio State just turned a button on and shut them down in the red zone. And by the red zone, I mean in this game, 40 yards and in, not our standard 20 yards and in. As soon as they got within 40 yards, it seemed like the Ohio State defense just went to another level, and Ryan Lewicki and Michigan State were just not able to convert with touchdowns, which is what they needed to keep it close in that game. Ohio State gets a big win against a ranked team. Like I said, Justin Fields, he had a pedestrian game for a guy that we're considering for the Heisman, but they do enough and look impressive against a quality team. Oklahoma goes on the road. We talked about them beating up on Kansas. Jalen Hurts, 228 yards passing, which is a pedestrian effort for him. 2 touchdowns. They get to go to Dallas next week and play against Texas. Texas went on the road and played West Virginia in Morgantown. They get it done 42-31. Sam Ehlinger looked good, but the big question for Texas is their defense. Their defense, it looked like it was a part of an FBI lineup. Like they're missing in action. And I don't even want to use the word action because for not being a great team, I know coming into the game that West Virginia was 3-1. We don't think of them as an offensive juggernaut. And they were moving the ball on Texas all day long. And I can't see Texas showing up this defense in 1 week. Can you?
Oh, no. Texas, that defense is not going to show up. When you go back, you look at that game yesterday, the first play that they're going to show you is the interception that the Texas corner had over the West Virginia wide receiver. And that's one good play. That was a great play by that guy. But, again, what it boils down to, you're going against another offensive juggernaut. You're playing in a rivalry game. And on top of that, you have Jalen Hurts, who – He is more of a threat than any other quarterback they probably played this season, with the fact that he's able to run and pass the ball and get it to
he's
make
another
plays
Joe
in
Burrow.
open. Right.
Well, I mean, Joe Burrow doesn't have the running skills that Jalen Hurts has, but they're both quality quarterbacks that can beat you with their arm. And if Joe Burrow needs to run, he'll take off and run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So going into next week, I think if Texas isn't able to sew up some of the holes, granted now Texas does have a lot of injuries in that secondary, which may come back to bite them next week. But if they're not able to sew up at least the front four, get some pressure on Jalen with the front four, it's going to be a long game next week.
Yeah, Florida's competition next week is going to be at Death Valley for LSU. LSU's Joe Burrow goes for 344 yards, 5 touchdowns yesterday against Utah State. Utah State is what they are. I thought they'd score more points and keep it close, but they didn't. This is more of a tune-up game for LSU, and next week it's just good. It's going to be all hands on deck for both teams.
Yes, next week we're going to see if LSU is actually a contender going into the SEC, the meat of their schedule rather. Basically, you have Florida, who is right now possibly the heir apparent to Georgia right now. I mean, I think they may be able to knock off Georgia as well. So when you're looking at this LSU game next week, we're going to see if Joe Burrow is going to have his Heisman moment next week. If not, if he doesn't have a moment like this, I mean, this may begin to see the tailwind of LSU like it happens just about every year.
Switching gears, let's go to the Big Ten, and Iowa goes on the road to the Big House to play Michigan. Both teams are ranked. Both teams are tough, physical running teams. We knew it was going to be a low-scoring game. Michigan gets it done 10-3 in a very unimpressive effort offensively, which is what we've come to expect from Michigan. Defensively, they saved the game. Michigan's defense won that game for them yesterday, and this is what I want to talk about with you. I don't know if it was Michigan's defense that won the game for Michigan or if Iowa won the game for Michigan. Let me give you some quick stats. Nate Stanley, normally a solid guy, senior quarterback, doesn't make mistakes. I think he had gone over 150 passing attempts without an interception. Yesterday he throws 3 interceptions. Iowa has 4 turnovers. They committed 8 penalties, which is twice as much as they're averaging over the course of the season, and it cost them 60 yards. They were inside Michigan's 40 6 times and yet only walked away with a field goal. To me, it's a real close story between how good Michigan's defense was and how bad and what a big implosion Iowa committed on themselves.
Well, I'm going to throw you another stat out. Yesterday, Iowa rushed the ball for 30 times. Rushed the ball 30 times. Guess how many yards they had? 1.
30 rushes with 1 yard.
1 yard.
That's not going to get it done.
And so then on top of that, you have a quarterback who got sacked so many times yesterday that his average rushing yards was a negative 64. So when you have a defense that's putting that much pressure on a quarterback and actually just stopping your running game, you're going to have issues like this. They weren't able to pass the ball because they weren't able to have a balanced offense. Of course, Iowa's offense is based, its tendencies is having a balanced offense. With them not being able to have a balanced offense like yesterday, that's what you get from Iowa.
Yeah, you're right. Michigan was able to get to Nate Stanley 8 times. 8 times. So A-plus effort for Michigan's defense. Their offense is obviously the concern again, and it starts with Shea Patterson. It starts with their running game, Carbonneau not being 100% healthy. But I don't know why they're not going to one of their backup quarterbacks and using Peoples-Jones more and Tariq Black, who are obvious weapons that would be starting on any other team in the country. I don't know what Jim Harbaugh is thinking. You put up 10 points at home. It's not going to work that way when you play, the Wisconsins of the world and the Ohio States and a tougher schedule that's going to be coming up for them. They've got to get something going offensively if they want to play in the Big Ten championship game.
Well, the issue with Michigan is, of course, they yesterday they kind of went back to their roots as to what they do, which is trying to run the ball. Unfortunately, Shea Patterson, he's a quarterback who, for some reason, he's just making bad decisions. You have him as a turnover magnet, and I don't know why they won't go to another quarterback. I understand they have injuries with McCaffrey. I understand he's out, so that's another option that's taken away from them. However, I'm pretty sure they have other quarterbacks on their depth chart that could actually move the ball down the field and actually get it to Peoples-Jones. I understand Peoples-Jones is hurt at one point.
Tariq Black?
Yeah, I mean, they have options. They have
got weapons.
So I don't understand it as a whole what Harbaugh is doing. But if he doesn't find a way to do something, he's going to be back on the hot seat again.
Yeah. Kind of off of the beaten path. I wanted to talk about SMU yesterday and a comeback victory over Tulsa 43-37. 5 or 6 years ago, June Jones had that team turned around after he left Hawaii, came to SMU, got that offensive going. Then they kind of fell off the map. They're 6-0 right now, and they're ranked in the top 25. They're kind of one of those teams like Wake Forest, who's 5-0 and ranked, that they're one of my pleasant surprises in college football. The other team that I wanted to talk about was Baylor. Baylor gets it done on the road at Kansas State yesterday, and I think we have to give Matt Rhuke full credit for turning around a program that was absolutely beyond a dumpster fire when he took it over. And to have them undefeated, to have the fans starting to show back up in Waco, and I've been through Waco. There's nothing out there. I mean, this is a dot on the planet that God forgot he even created. It is out in the middle of nowhere, and how you can recruit there, I don't know, especially when you have so many other prestigious colleges in Texas, and everybody else goes to Texas to poach the talent. The fact that he's got them 5-0 and gets what I would call a quality win on the road at a good Kansas State team, I give Baylor full credit being 5-0 right now.
It just goes to show what type of character the coach has. At the time when Art Browse was actually coaching Baylor, he recruited guys who had talent, but unfortunately they didn't have character. And what you see from Matt Rhuke is he's bringing in guys who has character, who has heart, and you see them actually perpetuating that heart, and it's actually showing up on the field. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised, because I really didn't see Baylor either as a contender in the Big 12, but they're flying under the radar and they're looking pretty good.
They do look pretty good. It was a great weekend in college football. We want to put a bow on that right now. Next week is even going to be a better week scheduling-wise. A lot of big games, and we're going to find out a lot more about who's for real next week and who's really a pretender. And that's not to say that I think Auburn is a pretender. I think they're just they're a really solid team still, and they're going to give the rest of their schedule a whole lot of hell moving forward. I just think that they got overmatched yesterday. We want to take a minute to ask you guys, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. We met a lot of the fans of the show out at College Game Day yesterday. We might be at College Game Day in Louisiana next week. We haven't decided yet, but it was awesome to get out there and meet fans of the show. We appreciate you listening. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, help us build up the show, and thanks so much for your support. Switching gears to MMA, UFC last night, 243. Robert Whittaker, the man from down under, who I thought is just a beast in the cage, goes up against Isreal Adesanya, and Adesanya gets a second-round knockout. I was looking forward to this fight all week because you have two warriors in there, and I hate using that term, so I'm just going to put myself on mute and let you talk about it. But you have two incredibly talented fighters in there yesterday. And Isreal Adesanya gets it done in the second round with a knockout.
Isreal Adesanya, coming into this match last night, you have this guy comes in with his best friends who are dancers, and you see a guy walking into the ring with a choreographed dance, and you're like, okay, is this guy for real? But not knowing that, this guy has beat some of the best already. The guy is undefeated, and when he steps into that ring, it's like a switch turns on. And that switch turned on last night, and he actually dominated Whittaker in that fight. It wasn't really even a close fight. I mean, you get in there like less than 30 seconds, he already knocked Whittaker down. And so the fact that he was able to just land punches, continuously land punches to continuously dominate that fight, and to get that knockout 10 seconds going into the second round, it was beauty in motion. And the fact that he had his family there, and he was a fan of MMA, and the fact that he was able to bring his fandom and passion into MMA, and actually he loves to actually bring all that love in there and actually win a championship. It just shows that, I mean, you can do anything if you set your mind to it. And I mean, my hat's off to Isreal Adesanya, and good luck going to the future. Yeah,
great unification bout last night. On another side note with boxing, one of the things in boxing that I think is a highlight, Triple G gets a win yesterday in a decision. It goes to a decision, moving forward, wanting to fight Canelo Alvarez again. And the first fight, I mean, I don't even know. This is what bothers me about boxing, is anybody that saw that first fight, Triple G, Canelo gets a split decision victory in that one. I mean, I don't even know where to put that. I don't know. Boxing would be so awesome if we could just legitimize it somehow and take out the stupidness of some of these calls that just makes you think something's working behind the scenes and it's fixed. And I don't want to think that with boxing because it's such a great sport. Somehow, something's got to snap where boxing can get back to its glory days in the 80s, where there's dozens of fighters that you're familiar with, that you know, that you're fans of, that you want to see, that give you great performances. I think of the Hagler-Hearns fight and the Sugar Ray fights. And even if you want to go to the heavyweight division with Michael Moore and, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, there was just guys that you know. And now you look around and there's like 4 heavyweights that I even know about or care about. And the rest of the divisions are just like, if you take Triple G and a handful of fighters out of it, boxing's just not blowing any wind up my skirt right now, and it's sad because it's just such an eye-popping, it's entertaining, awesome, the pageantry, the build-up, the just everything with it could be awesome. But when you add that corruption part of it to it, where you see a fight that's just overwhelmingly on one guy's side and you get a split decision, it's so discouraging, isn't it?
It's discouraging. And, when you're looking at boxing, you're looking at all these different titles, all these different championships that's coming into play. Whereas when you look at something like UFC and Bellator, you have these divisions that are actually like one cohesive unit. So you don't necessarily see the corruption that goes on with boxing. Boxing is more about, it seems like now it's more about the promoter than it is about the fighter.
Yeah.
Back in the day, in the 80s, as you were referring to, when we wanted to see a fight, like we wanted to see a Hagler Hearns, we got a Hagler Hearns. We didn't have to promote it in the way. Well, we're not, this is not going to be financially good for us right now.
Yeah, you don't have to wait.
You don't have to worry about that
for Pacquiao and
exactly.
Mayweather.
We got it.
By the time that fight came, I was like, dude, I'm collecting Social Security at this point. I can't even see the damn television. Are you kidding me? I mean, I was so done with that. I wasn't even excited for it. And you know what? Hats off's got to go to Dana White and the upper echelon at UFC, because you never hear about corruption in UFC. And that is such an awesome thing, that when I know what I'm watching there is two pure fighters and whoever wins, wins. It's right out in front of it. I've never thought to myself, I wonder if that fight was fixed watching a UFC fight. And I love that about UFC.
Yeah, I mean, again, it takes the promoter out of the situation. You just have this one cohesive unit who puts together these fights when you want them. So you get to see, the up-and-coming fighters who are doing well actually go against some of these veteran fighters who already have titles or whatnot. Just like Isreal Adesanya last night. You get to see those fights right then and there. So until boxing is able to get the promoter out of the whole situation, we're going to continue to see, the corruption and some of the crazy decisions in those fights. Yeah,
it's really sad. Let's switch gears to the NFL. It's going to be a big NFL Sunday game. Not top teams playing top teams throughout the schedule, but a lot of evenly matched teams playing each other. The first one I wanted to talk about was the Rams going up to Seattle. It was a great game. Seattle gets the job done under Russell Wilson, who helped your fantasy points. I think he had like 2 million fantasy points that night. Seattle gets it done 30-29. I want to talk about the Rams for a minute. They've been the juggernaut the last 2 years. Offensively, they've gotten a lot better. Defensively, they've been very solid. But you can't keep asking a still young quarterback in Jared Goff to throw the ball 65,000 times. He goes for 395 yards against Seattle's defense. The week before, he had thrown, I think he had over 55 attempts passing the ball. You can't keep asking him to do that when your defense isn't solid. The Rams defense is not what it's been the last 2 years. I don't know what's going on with the Rams defense. They have a great coordinator on defense. I don't know why they look like a sieve, but they do. And if they don't get it figured out, they might not make the playoffs.
You're right. They may not make the playoffs. So looking at that Rams defense the other night, I'm looking at that secondary. I mean, Russell Wilson was able to carve up that secondary left and right. You had unknown tight ends like Disley. You had, the wide receivers getting wide open. You even had running backs. Carson catch a touchdown pass, and so that's going to what are the Rams doing? What do they need to do to get back to the fundamentals as to where they were last year? If they don't get back to those fundamentals, they're going to they're going to lose to teams like Tampa Bay like they did last week.
Yeah, I have full respect for Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator there. He's more than proven himself over generations in the NFL, but they've got to figure out what's going on, because to have a defensive lineman converted to tight end, getting wide open on your secondary multiple times.
Yeah.
That just can't be happening. I mean, to have Jameis Winston put up 55 on you in a home game, and every game in the NFL is a win. You've got to get a win. That's what everything's focused on. Everything is about win this week. I don't care what happened next week. I'm not looking ahead. We need to win this game.
Yeah.
And you lose at home to Tampa Bay, and in doing so, give up 55 points, and then you go on the road to a game that you've got to win against Seattle. And their offense, Russell Wilson was doing whatever he wanted to do. Their defense has just got to get shored up. I thought it was a good game. Good for Seattle. Russell Wilson's an awesome quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the past 10 years, definitely in the NFL. But my concern is with the Rams right now. You can't leave your quarterback hanging out to dry when he has 75,000 attempts a game with a defense that can't hold anybody under 30 points. They gave up over 30 points to Carolina in the season opener. And here's the other thing. What is going on with Todd Gurley? It can't just be a health thing. I'm convinced that. You and I have had discussions about this in our circle of friends, and everybody says it's just a health thing. I don't think it's a health thing. I think there's something else going on, whether it's a disciplinary thing, whether it's a head thing, whether it's a physical thing, a combination of all of them. Todd Gurley is not the $100 million man right now. Something's going on with him.
The reason I stick to it has to be an injury thing. If it was a discipline thing, something would have leaked out by now. I understand that some organizations are close-knit, but things have a way of coming out if there was disciplinary issues. So I'm really thinking that Todd Gurley is really having a injury-prone situation. He had that situation in Georgia, and I think it's just carried on to the pros.
I mean, that might be the case, but they've been playing with it. They made it to the Super Bowl when he had some issues last year, but if they don't get the defense turned around, I could see them not even making the playoffs this year. You can't expect Goff to do it all. Chicago and the Raiders today from London. Chicago's given 5.5 points. Mitchell Trubisky won't be starting. It'll be Chase Daniels in his 75th year out of Missouri for the quarterback position starting for Chicago. The over and under is 41 points on this game. I've got to go with the under just because I don't know if the Raiders can even score. This is going to be a big revenge game for Khalil Mack. I think he wants to show the Raiders, hey, you want to trade me, that's fine. I'm just going to take the head off of your quarterback, who's a $100 million man, and then we can start the discussion from there.
I'm looking at this game with Chicago and Oakland, and it's going to come down to what Gruden can actually draw up, whether it's to get his tight end open, and really if Oakland could actually run the ball. If they can't run the ball, establish a running game, it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a long game for Derek Carr today, unfortunately.
Well, let's talk about the Raiders' defense for a minute. And first of all, this is going to be their third road game in a row. Yeah. So they've got to be tired. And it's not like they're just going down to L.A. to play a game. They're going all the way to London. Third road game in a row. Vontez Burfict gets suspended for the rest of the season. So your number one linebacker is now out. I don't know how they're going to score against this defense. This could be a shutout game. That's why I'm loving the under on the 41 right now. And really, I don't even care who Chicago's quarterback is at this point. They could put Eli Manning back there, and I still take Chicago minus the 5.5.
Yeah, I think Chicago wins the game. But, it's really, we're going to see Gruden's coaching mental today. We're going to see how he's going to be able to get this offense moving. I understand they're going across the pond to England to play this game. So, there's going to be some type of, physical effect with that traveling to a whole other country. So let's see if he gets them up and still take Chicago with the points.
Next game on the board, I've got Minnesota going on the road to play the G-Men. The big story with New York, I think, is their lack of offense. Golden Tate's been suspended 4 games. He comes back. Is he going to be 100% in the game? How many passes has he caught and repetitions has he gotten from Daniel Jones? Saquon Barkley is out of the game. Corey Coleman, their wide receiver, has been out since training camp. That's going to affect them. Sterling Shepard, wide receiver for the Giants, still has a thumb injury. We don't know if he's going to be 100%. So on the offensive side of the ball for the Giants, I don't know what we're going to get out of them. As far as Minnesota, they're 24th in the league in total offense. They've got to start turning that around right now. The Kirk Cousins thing, when I heard he got that guaranteed contract, I just about jumped out of my underwear. And he hasn't lived up to the money and the expectation that they had for him. Minnesota, I expect a close game here. I'm actually taking the Giants plus the points in this one. But if I'm Minnesota, your expectation, it can't just be the playoffs. They've got to be playing for a Super Bowl this year. Your running back is healthy for the first time, but for some reason, Kirk Cousins can't get it going on offense. How do you see this game today?
Well, I see this game being a close game. I think what it boils down to is if Kirk Cousins can actually hopefully get Stephon Diggs the ball to kind of mend this relationship. Dalvin Cook is going to put up Dalvin Cook numbers as he's done all season long. Go against this probably one of the tougher defenses he's had all this season so far.
Yeah.
So, really it's going to boil down to Cousins and Daniel Jones today. But, I'm going to take Minnesota with the points as well.
Yeah. Baltimore goes on the road, given 3.5 at Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph, who's the heir apparent to Big Ben there in Pittsburgh had a good game on Monday night. Not lights out, but managed the game. Here's the key stat for this game with Baltimore going on the road. The road team is 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 games. The Steelers' offense doesn't seem to be flowing, and when you're going up against a Harbaugh defense that Baltimore has, I think that they're going to be able to neutralize him. He's a young quarterback. I like Baltimore minus the 3.5, and I think that I don't know if Baltimore is going to have a big game. I don't know what exactly I'm going to expect out of Jackson in this game, but I think they're going to do enough to pull away in the second half. I'll take Baltimore minus the 3.5.
Yeah, so when you're looking at Pittsburgh without Ben Roethlisberger to throw the ball to the Juju Schuster, and then on top of that, you're trying to get them to establish the running game to help out this quarterback. I'm with you when I'm looking at this Ravens defense. I think it's just going to be a little too much for Pittsburgh today, and I'm with you. I'm taking the Ravens with the points.
And I don't know if James Conner is 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's been 100% this whole season, so you don't have a reliable running game.
Right.
That would help Mason Rudolph. He's new. I'm laying the 3.5 on this one. I'll take Baltimore. Bills go on the road to Tennessee. Marcus Mariota and Tennessee. Let's just put Marcus Mariota in the bipolar category because it's like awesome game. Where are you? Great game. I don't know where you're at. Off the map. Really good. I don't know what I'm getting when I look at the Tennessee offense. They're playing at home. The Bills have a solid defense. The Bills are getting 3 points. Matt Barkley's going to get the start there, I think. And even if Josh Allen's been in the concussion protocol all week, the thing with Buffalo and their offense is when you have Josh Allen in, the accuracy goes down, but the mobility goes up. Barkley showed us against a really good Pats defense last week that he can move the ball, but he's not very mobile. If they get any kind of pressure on him from that front four of Tennessee, he can't escape it the way Josh Allen can. The whole thing with Tennessee is they're bipolar. I don't know what you're getting on offense out of Marcus Mariota. How do you see the game breaking down?
Well, it goes to who starts. Josh Allen did pass the concussion protocol, so he may get the start today. So it just depends, on who they want to start today. If Josh Allen starts, he gives them that extra mobility, like you said. But again, the accuracy goes down. So if Matt Barkley is able to play and actually able to carve up this defense that Tennessee has at times. Sometimes they're good, sometimes it's bad. Then the Bills have a shot at actually bringing this game open. But again, I'm gonna take the points. The Bills with the points.
Yeah, in the last 4 games, the underdog in this series is 4-0. I have confidence in Matt Barkley. I don't think that he's gonna light it up against you, but he looked more than ready last week against a very stout Patriots defense. I'm going to take the Bills plus the 3. And actually, this will be my teaser special. I'll go outside of college football. This will be my 5-star millennial pick teaser of the week in the NFL. I'll take the Bills plus the 9 on the road against Tennessee. I don't know what I'm getting out of Marcus Mariota. If he has a big game, they could go past the 9 points. But I think that Bills defense is going to keep it close. I like the Bills in this game. One of the bigger games on the docket this week is Green Bay going on the road to Dallas. Dallas is laying 3.5. This game is interesting in a lot of ways. I think the key for Dallas isn't even necessarily Dak Prescott, who I look at as a good game manager. I think that they've got to get Ezekiel going early and often and establish the run against a really good Packers defense and open up the game that way. Then let Dak pick his spots in the secondary and dink and dunk. He doesn't even have to go downfield. But I think you manage this game, but it's got to start with getting Ezekiel Elliott on track early at home against a defense that's really good.
Yeah, I think, Dallas actually has an advantage over Green Bay as their number one receiver is actually going to be out today with the turf toe injury. And so the fact that they're playing at home, the fact that they can get Zeke going, and the fact that Aaron Rodgers now has to go and find another wide receiver to actually break the game open, I think Dallas should be able to win this game easily today.
Michael Gallup comes back at wide receiver for Dallas. I like that. Green Bay's got the number 9 overall defense in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers plays well against Dallas historically. The last time they were there a couple years ago in the playoff game, let him do a fourth quarter last minute drive to win the game and go on to play Atlanta. I like Dallas in this game, though. I think that they get Ezekiel going. I like what Dallas has on offense. I think this is a bounce-back game for them. I'm taking Dallas, lay the 3.5 at home.
Yeah, again, I'm taking Dallas with the points as well.
Are you just? Did you see my notes before the game? Because it seems like you're just copying my stuff.
No, I mean,
yeah.
No, no, I just know, just watching, a little bit of, just a little bit of sports this week, and just seeing who's playing and who's not, who's injured, and
we seem to in a very funny way have a lot of the same picks, and I'm giving my picks first.
Hey.
I'm just seeing a trend. That's all I'm saying. Bucks go on the road to play the Saints. Teddy Bridgewater has more than proved himself as a backup quarterback and a sustainable one in the absence of Drew Brees with the hand injury. Saints get a big win at home against Dallas, but where was the offense in that game? Again, we're talking about Teddy Bridgewater managing the game only, not opening it up. And the Bucks come into town. Obviously, they've got to be on a high. They beat the Rams. Jameis Winston has the greatest moment in his life last week, putting up 55 points and throwing it about 500 million times. I'm, way far away from buying in on Jameis Winston. Believe me, he is still owning the dog pound by himself right now. But I think this is going to be a tough game, Chris.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. But I think that Tampa Bay, their receivers for some reason has come alive, and they're putting up pretty decent numbers this week. I actually think that Jameis and those Pirates from down in Tampa actually have a shot to win this game today.
Yeah, they've definitely got a shot. When you've got an offense that can move the ball the way that Tampa Bay has in the last couple weeks, you've got a shot against them. I just think it's going to be a really, really close game. This isn't one of my picks on the week, but it was an interesting game that I wanted to cover and talk about. The next game on my board is going to be the Jaguars going to Carolina Panthers. Cam is not going to be playing in this game, but his backup Kelly has been more than effective. How do you see the breakdown on this one?
Well, the breakdown of this game is going to basically boil down to Minshew. This is like the third week that Minshew has actually won like a play of the week award going into this game this week right here. And so basically it boils down to, is the Jacksonville defense going to come to play and actually stop Christian McCaffrey and that Carolina offense? And I think if they're able to go ahead and stop that, put some of the drama with the whole Jalen Ramsey stuff behind them, the whole Marcel Darius situation that happened this week, if they're able to put that stuff behind them today, I feel that Jacksonville will pull off a win today against Carolina.
One of the big notes with the Jacksonville-Carolina game is that I think, and it's going to be an important factor, is Gardner Minshew looks like a 70s porn star. Or is it just me? Not the kind of baby face you want to have if you're going to jail, right? The whole look with the mustache, the 70s bandana, the long hair. What's going on with that look? I thought we had all we could handle with post-game interview fashion when it came to Cam Newton coming out in his serape chic look. Now we have this 70s tie-dye, surfer-esque long hair porn stash look from Gardner Minshew, and I think that's going to be a real key in the game this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a real key in the game when you have Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite leading his team down the field. I was looking at like a Twitter post this weekend. It said that Gardner Minshew, after he was born, drove his mom home. So, I think that mustache is actually going to play a big role in this game as well.
I think it's got to go. The mustache has got to go. I remember a Seinfeld episode that. Nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing the mustache. That look has got to go. But I like Jacksonville to keep this game close, if not pull out a victory. I'm taking Jacksonville in this one. Other things going on in the world of sports, Chris?
Well, we've already touched on the MMA and we've touched on Triple G. So, other than that in the boxing world, we've basically we have. Really, that's really about it. That's all we have for this week, really. There was nothing really spectacular. You had the WNBA fire a head coach for using some slurs, which was kind of just out of the realm, just abuse of power. We also had Zion Williamson yesterday for the first time, go in and play in a playing a game yesterday that had 10,000 fans in there. They actually got him to sing yesterday, which was horrible because he tried to do a rendition of Whitney Houston, and sounded terrible.
Yeah, they had 10,000 out there to see that game. That practice, didn't they?
Yeah, and finally, I don't know who's worse, the Lakers or the Cowboys. We had LeBron James, Anthony Davis team up for the first time yesterday against the Golden State Warriors. They blew out the Golden State Warriors in their brand new stadium. Steph comes down the court, shoots a 38-foot jumper, shoots an air ball. Tells D'Angelo Williams, I plan to shoot that ball to christen the actual court. And, of course, he shoots an air ball. But then on top of that, afterwards, we have Magic Johnson, of all the people, sending out a tweet yesterday talking about just how good this Laker team is going to be, and he's trying to warn the rest of the NBA. Magic, slow your roll. This is just a preseason game. These guys haven't even played game one in the season. Slow it down, Magic. We're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet. That's only a preseason game, but that music can mean only one thing. It's time to thank our support staff, my co-host, Chris Roberts, the man on the board, Taylor, son of God, El Presidente, Chet 40. Thank you, all of you who came up to us yesterday and talked to us at Game Day. We look forward to possibly seeing you at Game Day next week at LSU. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support. We will see you right here on YouTube live. Check us out on all the platforms, Spotify, iTunes. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Thank you for your support. We'll be here Friday, 7:30 p.m. next week. We're going to break down all the big games in college football. Take care till then.